Hi, I'm Rob.
And I'm Rob.
And this is Ask Rob and Rob.
Yes, welcome to another episode of Ask Rob and Rob, the show where you ask your questions and we give you some answers. This is the 169th time we've done this, but your questions keep on coming, which is fantastic. That's the wonderful thing about property. There's always more to learn, and we are more than happy to keep on answering as long as you keep asking. So we've got two great questions in today. We'll be hearing those in just a sec after a quick recap of how you can ask your own question.
So if you've not asked a question yet, make 2019 your year. Give us a call on 013 808 0035 or go to thepropertyhub.net/ask. And if you've asked a question before, you're in luck too, because we're nice guys and we'll let you come back on again. But this week we've got a couple of fresh hubbers asking questions for the first time. So let's tackle them.
Hi Rob and Rob, it's Philippa here. I've been listening to your podcast for the last year and I've had an RMP strategy session, and I'm now in a position to take a leap into the buy-to-let property world. So thank you so much for all that you've done to help me with that. My question essentially is, should a relatively low ROI influence the properties I'm buying? Just to explain a bit further, I'm currently looking at buy-to-let properties with a 10-year strategy, focusing on capital gains over rental yield. With that strategy in mind, I've been considering fundamentals that fit with that, largely in city centres, high spec, new builds, etc., where there's likely to be the greatest capital gains in the long term. However, the ROIs are coming out at around 5%. I've heard you talking of going for around 10%, so should this hold me back, or will the anticipated capital gains be the priority? What are the considerations that I should be giving to this? Thanks so much. Bye.
Thanks, Philippa. Great question. This is a brilliant question, in fact, because people have come up to Rob and I individually and asked this question. And of course, we've given an answer, but now we can answer to everyone because we have, on the record before, said that you should go after a 10% ROI. Now, with all the caveats aside of how you calculate that ROI, because you can pretty much come up with a 10% ROI on any property if you want to skew the numbers to your benefit. But putting that aside, and let's just say you calculate ROI sensibly, then should you still go after a 10% ROI if your focus is capital growth? No, you shouldn't. And this is the thing about the podcast. Hopefully we've delivered lots and lots of value to lots and lots of people. That's our aim, that's our ambition. But our thinking develops on subjects as well. And a few years ago, that was our belief, that you probably should go after a 10% ROI, whatever type of property you buy. But here's the thing. We both now believe, and I think this is better thinking, that you should be very deliberate in your choices, like you are, Philippa. You have deliberately said that you're focused on capital growth, this is long term, you're not in it for the return. But you don't want to feel like you're making a mistake and not get that 10% number. Well, the mistake was ours. Because if you are focused on capital growth, the ROI is the bonus, it's the top up, it's the nice thing that's there that's giving you that extra income every month. But it's not the number that's going to change your life. If it's 8%, 4%, 6%, the chances are the difference in monetary terms month in, month out isn't going to be huge and therefore not life-changing. But what you're trying to do, go for capital growth over a 10-year period, potentially is life-changing. So to put this to bed once and for all, it depends on what you're doing. If you're focused on capital growth, ROI is secondary. It's a nice to have, it's a bonus. If you're focused on income now, in the short term, it absolutely is ROI, and capital growth is the bonus. In this market, it's highly unlikely you're going to achieve both. And Rob, that's the other thing. When we first talked about this, the market was in a very different place.
Absolutely. And that's why I don't like giving out numbers on the podcast, because podcasts date and circumstances change. And as hopefully you'll know if you're a regular listener, the property cycle means that things are always changing and the market goes through different phases. There has been a point in the last 5 years when you could probably get a 10% ROI in a prime city centre location, and you could be a bit greedy and have everything. At the moment, that's just not where the market is. That doesn't mean that you shouldn't be buying. There's always a small window of the cycle where you've got to be brave because no one else is buying. But if you are brave, you can do really, really well and you can get a great ROI as well as the biggest capital growth potential. But as we covered before, it's dangerous trying to time the market and sit around for years and years and years waiting for that tiny window to come around again. As long as you're not buying in what's called the winner's curse phase when everything's going absolutely mental and you're probably near the top of the market, then over the long term, which is what you're investing for, Philippa, you're going to do well. It just means that you do have to make that choice about what's important to you. If you're looking for that ROI now, you'll have to be going into secondary and tertiary locations, which is okay, but that is going to hit your capital growth potential. So double digits sounds really good, but if you are investing for the growth, then it shouldn't be something that you fixate on. And the wonderful thing about property is that mainly to leverage, you can get a really good return while waiting for your growth to come. So in the stock market, for example, you'd call a stock high yielding if it was giving a return of about 4% a year. And those high yielding stocks aren't the ones that you necessarily expect to have much growth year to year. It's the equivalent of your income high yielding property in secondary areas that's not going to have a lot of growth. Whereas the tech stocks that have the potential to really explode in value normally pay no kind of income at all. So with property, you can have it all. You can have both, but it's always going to skew one way or the other. The great thing is, Philippa, you know what matters most to you. A lot of people don't. So once you know what matters to you, you can focus on that one thing. And as long as the cash flow is there and you're going to be making some money every month, you're in a good place and you can have faith that over the long term, you're going to get to where you need to be.
Thanks, Philippa. Great question. Next up, we've got another great question from Nathan. And it was so good, Rob, that I couldn't answer it because I didn't have the necessary experience. So I said to Nathan, he should ask you directly.
Hi, Rob and Rob. It's Nathan from London. I have been suggested by Rob Bent himself to ask Rob Dix a question. Goes without saying, thank you to you both for your information as you provide invaluable information for investors through their property journey. As I've been looking to professionalize my system of my investments, one thing I am considering is whether to join some kind of regulatory body, such as the NLA or the RLA, in which I know that both require a subscription, so that's why the consideration is needed. I see it being a benefit because I've recently noticed on a council application form, which is for an HMO license, they are asking whether we are part of any kind of regulatory body. So it indicates to me that the council may be taking an interest of, which body you're part of. So I suppose the question is, are you aware of a better body, so to speak? Which body would you pick and why? Thank you very much.
So thank you, Nathan, for the question. It's a good one. So the big landlord associations, for anyone who doesn't know, are the RLA, that's the Residential Landlords Association, and the NLA, which is the National Landlords Association. But I've got a wild card for you as well, which I'll mention in a minute. So you don't have to be a member of any association at all if you don't want to be. Most landlords aren't. But you might choose to become a member for a few different reasons. So they offer various discounts, they offer access to information, and they have helplines that you can call to get a bit of help whenever you need it as well. So that's the reason why you might join one of them. But your question is which? Well, I think it depends what it is that you're hoping to gain. So you mentioned a discount on HMO licenses. So if one of the associations in particular gives a discount on a license or something like that, then I'd say go with that one, because that could potentially save you quite a bit of money. It could save you more than you pay for the membership. Therefore, it's a no-brainer. Go with that one. If that's not the case, then you can look at the discounts that they offer more broadly. Each association tends to offer discounts on things like referencing and that kind of thing. So if there's a particular provider that you want access to, then go with whoever it is that gives you that discount. If it's more information and advice that you want, then that's where my wildcard comes into play, because there's a much smaller association that most people haven't heard of called the Guild of Residential Landlords. This is one that I'm a member of, and I really like it because the information that they provide is fantastic. They've got all kinds of templates for just about everything that you could possibly imagine, including a tenancy builder. So if you're self-managing, then that is super duper valuable, because pretty much any kind of document that you'll ever need, they've got a template for. They've also got a really good helpline. All the associations, I believe, have got a helpline, but because this is a smaller operation, it feels a bit more personal. You normally speak to the same person every time you phone, so that gives me a lot of faith in the advice that they offer. So that's my personal favourite. They're not paying me, I'm just a fan. But really, Nathan, it does depend what you're after. But well done for considering one of them, because like I say, most landlords don't, but it's a really good way of making sure that you are staying up to date and well informed, as well, of course, as listening to the podcast.
Well, Rob, you might want to give that helpline a call and tell them they're probably going to get a little busier now you've mentioned it on the podcast. There you go, Nathan. I told you he was a clever one. So that's it. You know the format. We're 2 questions done. That means we're done. But we're not done for the week because we're back on Thursday with the main event, the property podcast. So make sure you join us then. And we'll be back next week with Ask Rob and Rob, where we'll be answering more of your questions. So until then, take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.